know why I'm here, because I'm the kid that was thrown in the pool, sunk to the bottom while the coach looked at me.
We got you.
Help! I never have learned how to swim. I only know how to snorkel. But Carol Bekowitz, who arranged to have Jeff here, is not well. So she asked me to do it at short notice, and I will do the best I can. Okay, so it would help if I could see. Yes. Assume everybody here knows that Jeff's here to talk about his swims, right? Everybody's on that page. Okay. What I find fascinating, other than the sheer terror of swimming at night, and I hope you do talk about that, is that he did that around St. John's Swim, the first person ever to do it, at the age of 56. Wow. And he did the Virgin Gorda to St. John. He's the first, and as far as I know, still the only person to do that at 63. Woo. Yeah. So the swims are extraordinary just themselves, but to do them, excuse me, Jeff, at that age, is pretty damn remarkable. Okay. So we really have in our midst, you know, probably a world-class athlete. Everybody I know here has a story, but Jeff has an amazing story. And by the way, so does his wife, Jude. She has done 4 triathlons, or maybe more. Wow. I'm not sure. And I'm sure Jeff will talk about this, about his team. But I don't think anybody does the stuff that Jeff does without a supportive wife or spouse. Or they get divorced. One or the other. So anyway, I am always curious about how people, do the kind of things they do. And one thing I know about Jeff is that he is an Eagle Scout. Okay. Are you
Another
too?
Eagle Scout.
Okay. Any other Eagle Scouts here?
Eagle Scouts are.
All right. Okay.
Another?
Oh, here's one
Where's
here
the other
too. Okay. Only 5% of Scouts go on to become Eagle Scouts.
Now the Girl Scouts have an equivalent,
Not when Jeff was there.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Anyway, he got his badge, or his rank, I guess, in 1979. And for some reason, for I think 7 years, from like 1972 to 1979, they had to do 24 merit badges. So these are all, you have to show proficiency in all kinds of interesting subjects. And you had to do 24. Now it's 21. And I can see somebody getting, you get 5, you get 10, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about girls or cars or whatever it is. It takes a commitment, a long-term commitment to do something that. And I think that helps you a lot in the goals of your swims, of just doing it in an organization that goes into it. Anyway, let's see what I have in here. Oh yes, then I also asked him what motivated him. And he said it was seeing the things in the ocean. Just seeing as he swims along the ocean, which he sees more in his training swims than he actually does in the swims themselves. And no less an expert than Caroline Rogers told me that Jeff knows more about our reefs here than anybody on the planet, including herself. That's what she said. I'm not lying.
There's other people even in this room.
Well, that's all I can tell you. She also mentioned, and I didn't quite follow it well, I don't know if you, but I'm going to toss it out here in case anybody has a question. Jeff led and or authored a paper that has been quoted in Science Magazine this year. You're incredible. You're absolutely incredible. The other thing is he also told me that he likes mentoring people. I mentioned on the first swim that he was the first person to do it, but somebody else has done it after him in, what, a year ago?
2021.
2021. Okay, I never even heard about this, but a friend of Jeff's, and he helped her. He's helping somebody else who might want to swim from Red Hook to St. Thomas. So if anybody here wants to do something crazy and wacky, talk to that guy. And without further ado.
Thank you very much. That's my neighbor Angie, thank you. I'm going to try and go without the microphone. I think my voice will carry. Let's see, let me try and get things going here. Fingers crossed, we ran through this and everything worked. So we're going to hope that that's what we wanted to see. Thank you very much for that introduction. I really want to thank the Audubon Society for asking me to come here. Carol, I'm really bummed she can't be here tonight. She just was not feeling well. She has had a couple tough weeks. When she first talked to me about doing this, I've never really talked about the swims in public before. I've done it with a couple swim clubs. So I went back through all the stuff, and it's been really fun to relive it all. And I came to this video, Steve Simonson took this, and it just made me pause and think, how in the hell did I get here? Here is about 1.5 miles offshore the east end. It's getting dark. You can barely see, there's a couple lights on the side of the kayak. There's 2 double kayaks. They've got lights on their side. I've got a light at the side of them, a little chemical light stick. You can see the light on the boat over there. Adam's driving the boat with Justin, the salt shaker. You can see that it is getting dark. It's already dark in the water. You can see the water movement. There's a swell going from the left to the right, or from the south to the north. There's a wave chop going from the bottom of the screen to the top, from the east to the west. What I primarily see in this is that my stroke is looking kind of bad. I mean, I guess after 8 hours I can give myself a little bit of a break, but I'm ready to be done. So I thought, you know, how in the world did I get here? So let's talk about how I got here. Way back, it's going to be a long night. Okay. I'm just a kid that liked to play in the water. I was a little over 2 years old when this picture was taken. My parents put me in a swim program when I was 8. This is the 9 and 10 boys, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base Flying Fish swim team. And I was in this team until I graduated from high school. So I swam with these guys for over 10 years. I swam for 2 years in college. Wasn't exceptionally fast. I was just persistent. I just kept coming back. I just kept coming to practice. I was very determined. So we're going to jump ahead in time to when I lived in the Cayman Islands, 1984 to 1988. I lived in Cayman, Brac. The Caymans are located south of Miami. And these 2 guys, I worked mostly on Cayman Brac. We went over to Little Cayman to dive. And every week we'd go across this channel to go and dive, and I'd look at that 5-mile distance and go, I wonder if anybody swum that. And apparently nobody had, so that kind of got a bug in my ear to do this. And I talked to people and they thought I was nuts. There's critters, there's a lot of currents. The Caymans are located right on the edge of the Cayman Trench, which kind of starts right down here, which is over 20,000 feet, so it kind of slopes down to there. And if you don't know about the Caymans, they're wall dives primarily, so you just leave the bottom and then you go over this immense patch of blue and then you get to the other side and it comes right back up again. But after about 6 months of training, I was the first person to swim from Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. It was about 5 miles. There was no ratification agency at the time that I knew of. I was in the British island, so they convinced me to send it to the Guinness World Book of Records. So I did, and this gentleman wrote me back this nice letter, and he said, I'm afraid that this is really a bit too specialized of a category to be able to include it in the book. So there, I'd done something nobody else had done, and I got my rejection letter from Guinness World Book of Records. So yeah, there we go. That was my start. And what I learned in this was that it's okay to do things that people think you shouldn't do. You know, if you kind of break them down in their bite-sized chunks. I had a great support team on this. I lost a lot of the pictures and stuff in the fire I had, so this is kind of a representation of that event. But now we're going to jump ahead about another 27 years in time to life in St. John and this event. Jude and I have done a lot of triathlons. She's done more Ironmans than I have, and we like endurance events. I've done 5-mile swims in St. Croix. A lot of fun there. We moved over here in 1997. I got involved with swim camps and people who came down here to do week-long swim programs. And these were accomplished marathon swimmers. These were English Channel swimmers. They were people who had done swims around Manhattan, Channel Island swims. And we would sit around and they would say, well, what about swimming around St. John? And that's just kind of the way the seed gets planted. You know, it's just an idea, and then you mull it around for a while and think about it. One of the things I knew was that if I was going to do it, I wanted it to involve some beneficiaries, and one of those was St. John Cancer Fund. Too many people in my life, too many people in this community have cancer, and the St. John Cancer Fund is absolutely amazing. They do a tremendous job, and I thought, okay, I want to help try and alleviate some of the problems that go on there. And then I don't know if you folks saw any of this. This is from Team River Runner, and I think this was 2014 or 2015. This is Tim Clark. He's a double amputee. He did the entire 3.5-mile beach-to-beach power swim with a mask and snorkel, and I was blown away. There on the shoreline, the guy in the blue shirt, he's visually impaired. He did the 1-mile swim with a swimmer, a guide swimmer, the guy next to him. And I thought, you know, this Team River Runner group, if I can bring another one of these guys down, just raise a little bit of money, that another one gets to come down, or maybe a couple more get to come down, that would be a really worthy thing to do. And these guys come down, they do 8 tough miles, they do the beach-to-beach power swim. It's really a great group. They want to get these veterans in kayaks and in paddle boats and associated with the water. They just want to get them doing things to help in their recovery. And I thought, what a phenomenal way to mix the water stuff that I like to do with these groups. So these were 2 causes I wanted to take on if I decided to do these swims. So as we got thinking about this, and I wanted to kind of clarify a couple things. This is swimming. These long distance groups introduced me to the Marathon Swimming Federation, which has now kind of become a governing body. And the swims are just basically done with a bathing suit, a cap, and the goggles. I mean, when I swim in the dark, I have goggles that are light and colored. These are prescription goggles, so I can actually see without my glasses there. And you know, there's nothing that keeps you warmer in the water than you can't have any thermal protection. You can have earplugs and nose plugs. But there's all these kind of rules if you decide to abide by them. And I wanted the swims to be what they call unassisted. So just basically as long distance swimming had already been done. There's a lot of the spirit of long distance swimming involved in all of this. And you're going to say, look, I'm not going to be assisted. I'm not going to hang on to a boat when I feed or when I take assistance. I'm going to keep paddling in the water myself. There's no touching anything until you're done. And we'll talk about this a little more as we go. But to do the thing, I had to break it down into pieces. I mean, I'm different than most long-distance swimmers. Most of them go to pools, and they swim in the pools, and they go back and forth and back and forth. They spend a little bit of time in the open water, and they go do an event. I don't have a pool to go to. I mean, I enjoy swimming in the open water. So I need to get into the training. I need to get into the nutrition. I need to understand the logistics. A lot of talk about you go around the north side, you go around the south side first. What's the deal with that? How do we do it? How do we get the support people with us? We had to figure that out. And then, of course, swimming at night. We will talk about that in a little bit. So, Jesse keeps swimming. That's kind of the way I titled this program, and it's what I enjoy doing. So, over the years, since 2014, I've logged almost 2,500 miles. To do the logging, I simply just kind of use an old GPS watch. This is a Garmin Forerunner. It's ancient. I've taken the watch bands off, and I put it under my cap and put it on my head, because that way it's not submerged all the time in the water. Watches have gotten a lot better now. I mean, this is relatively early in time, but Apple Watches and some Garmin's now, when you put them in the water and come back up, in that second that you're taking a stroke, they can find your position again. But back in the day, 2014, 15, and 16, this was the guy that did it. And I put it in my cap, and it tracked my swims. I downloaded some websites. I would also swim with the bag. And this is really important. I could put my phone in it. And you can log on to a website when you do swims. You get a little better reception from your phone offshore as far as connection to the cell towers. And Jude could actually track the swims because we can use different apps, and she would know where I was out swimming. So this is helpful for visibility of boaters seeing me, and with her knowing where I am. It's not a lot of flotation device with it, but it just really helps with the visibility. They're not for use during the events. So like when you're doing a sanctioned swim, you can't use the GPS, you can't use the bags. So that's fine, but in training, yeah, use them all you want. So if we break down the training into 2016, it was about 355 miles over the 9 months leading up to the swim around the island, which was going to be in September where the water was the warmest. Now, poor me, I was still working at the time, so I was traveling in February, July, and June and July. I was off island for a couple weeks. So those months were a little bit lower, but I was pretty impressed with the nearly 80 miles in August before the swim. That was kind of exciting. It did take a toll on me. There were a number of weekends where I spent the afternoon on the couch with a couple ice packs trying to soothe some more sore muscles. But the general idea is you get in the water every day. You're going to swim 1 or 2 miles every day, and then a long swim on the weekend. That's the way I decided I was going to build myself up into this. So what I wanted to do is kind of show you some of the different ways to build up those long swims. The North Shore is a really fun way to go, and the beach power swim is great for that. You know, you're close to shore. It's really easy to, if you get in trouble, relatively easy to come ashore anytime like that. It works out really well. So you can do the 3.5 mile power swim in the morning, and say then go back in the afternoon and do another swim around Whistling Key in the afternoon. That's one of my favorite swims, is to go around there and come back. It's a way to get some extra distance in the day. You get a rest in between. And the idea is just to shorten the interval in between these swims that makes them longer and longer. I have a really healthy respect for the water. I spent a lot of time in the water with the dives, with the swimming. I am not going to defeat it in any way. I mean, if there's waves, if there's currents, you better know how to manage it or go with it. You're not going to go against it and accomplish anything. So all the time swimming around Whistling Key, you know, I'm just really paying attention to what's going on, make sure the weather's good before any kind of nonsense like that. This is a fun one. You can actually swim all along the North Shore and get in a good 4.5 miles of swimming and really not need help from anybody. You're spending most of your time inside the boat exclusion buoys. There's a couple ways you're out, but this is a healthy 4.5 mile swim. And to do 4.5 miles, you need to have some nutrition while you're swimming. So I thought I would bring some of this. This is the stuff that worked for me. It's a drink. It's called perpetuum. Most of the time when you digest food, you're in an upright position, and it's done, from what I'm told, in the bottom part of your stomach. But when you're swimming, you're horizontal. And so solids don't digest really well. So I was going with fluids, and I just happened to have a made-up bottle of this yummy stuff. And I know you have treats for yourself after the program tonight, but I've got cups, and I've got more of this. So anybody who would like a little of the drink is more than welcome to it. Give it a try. It's kind of an orange flavor. It mixes well with salt water. But the fun way to deal with it when you're doing these long swims is I would take them, these bottles, and the most I'd carry is ever 3 at a time. And then I would clip them to the park service buoys. And that way, I wouldn't have to carry them with me everywhere I went. I knew I was going back by that buoy, so I would get that bottle on the way back. And most of the time, I would freeze the bottles before I started, because I wouldn't be back for an hour and a half. They would be thawed by then. I always left a little bubble in the top, because that way I knew if salt water leaked into it, and I probably wouldn't want to drink it then. And then I'm always into making sure, it's probably that Eagle Scout, that I take care of myself in case of emergencies. And this is a little packet of like instant energy. This is about 120 calories. You can stick it right up your suit. And I would always carry these with me because, again, if you get into trouble, you got to take care of yourself. And between the nutrition of the drink and these little gel packs, that was the way I took care of my nutrition. So all the long swims, anything over a couple hours, I would take one of these bottles with me, and that's what I used. No food. It was solely just the liquid nourishment. This is one of my favorite days of swimming. So, power swim. That's great. Start about 7 in the morning. Have a good time. But now we're going to have to walk back to the car. So that way you keep your heart rate elevated a little bit. Then let's go do the intermediate course just for fun, and then walk back to the car. Then let's go do the short course one more time, and I need a few more miles, so let's swim out to the end of Francis and back. And it makes for a really, I mean, I love this day. It's almost 9 miles of swimming, about 7 miles of walking. It's almost 8 hours of activity. And again, this in combination with just the little swims during the week is how I thought this is the way I'm going to build myself up. There wasn't any training program. It's almost more that I would do this and then kind of convince myself, yeah, okay, if I can do that, that's good, that worked. Now let's go on to the next thing. if the North Shore is rough, like it's been kind of lately, I call this mangrove madness, because by the time I'm done with this, in Hurricane Hole, you've seen pretty much all the mangroves a number of times. Easy to put the bottles in the mangroves, come around, but it's pretty much a whole tour of the bays when you accomplish something like this, a little over 6 miles. And this brings up something that I decided to do kind of in the middle of the summer before I went around the island. The plan for this swim was just to finish and come on in there just a little under 6 miles. But I figured at some point, when I was going around the island, I was going to want to stop, right? You know, things are going to get tired or sore, or it's just not going your way. You would want to call it quits. And at some point, you'd have to dig deep and say, well, you know, you want to stop, but you really need to keep going. So what I try and do is every now and then on a long swim, I'd say, okay, you want to stop, but no, let's keep going. Let's do this extra half mile, just because you thought you were done, but you're really not. So you're training not only your body, but your mind to say, let's dig a little deeper. It's not time to quit just yet. And then probably one of my favorite swims, the weather's got to be right for this, is you can start at Salt Pond on the south side. You get a few extra miles by going into the bays, into Gropan or Kittle or into Lancashire Bay. But then just swimming across from Cabrihorn Point into Fish Bay, or into Reef Bay. And then of course you're there, you might as well hike back to the car, because that keeps things and your heart rate up as well. You got to drag all your bottles with you for this. But this is a great day again. This is about 4.5 hours. You get some elevation in. The idea is to just keep doing stuff. So maybe I'd do a 7 or 8 mile swim on a Saturday, and then do a 4 mile swim with a 4 mile hike on Sunday, to try and just keep those activities pushing together. So we were getting down to the end of the summer, right? September, the weather's usually pretty calm, wind-wise. In September of 2014, I had swum from all over around the north side into the seaplane ramp in Cruz Bay. So the long swim before I swam around the island was the other way around. It was like, okay, let's go around the south shore from the seaplane ramp all around and head on into all over. That way I've kind of done the 2 halves of the island, single time, kind of got an idea what it's like. This was August 21st we did this, and I learned a lot. We all learned a lot when we did this swim. It was an interesting plan. We started about 5:15 in the morning from the seaplane ramp. It was Eric and Jude in a kayak and Jeff swimming. So off we go. And the plan was Joe and Christina Kessler, God bless them, they were going to come in their boat out of Coral Bay and meet us off the south side. They would just find us. I don't really know how, but they would. I mean, there's a kayak out there. Not a good plan. It worked, but what really became evident was having one kayak didn't work really well. And what would work best, and Jude came up with this, I'll give her all the credit, was we need 2 double kayaks, one to be with the swimmer and one to be on the power boat that's assisting everybody. And that way you've got a crew kind of resting on the power boat and a crew with the double kayak with the swimmer. And when this crew needed to change, the double kayak from the power boat would join them, and then this kayak team would go back. And there was always somebody with the swimmer, because there were times when they were doing things with the boat, I just said, well, you'll find me, I'll just keep going, and that didn't work out real well. It seems really simple now. Yeah, it works great. But in August of 2016, we hadn't thought of it yet. So I'm really glad we did. Another thing we learned about was navigation and currents. So this is the website I download the tracks to from the GPS. And this dark line here corresponds with this mile up here. And these are the times of the mile. Anything around 30 minutes, 32, 34 minutes for me is really acceptable. This was a 34-minute mile right here. The next 2 miles were 27 and 29 minutes now. I didn't really push it hard. I didn't change anything, so something pushed me. And then the next 3 miles were all in the 40 to 45-minute pace. Something was going against me around Cabrihorn Point. So it became very clear I had to figure out what was going on with the currents. The other thing that became clear was we had to swim a straight line, because this bow here, although that does not look like much, is about 500 extra meters. It takes me 2 minutes to swim 100 meters. That's an extra 10 minutes. So as you add that up when you go around, you can have an extra half hour, and that's just an extra half hour. I'd rather not be swimming if I could just swim a straight line. So navigation became important. We learned about the currents by just going back into this app and looking at all the different swims I would done. This is out one in 2014. I looked at my times. I know this is all hard to see, but then I looked at the tides from different tide stations. This is Leinster and this is Livongo. And I said, okay, what was I swimming, what pace, when the tide was at this part? And I did this for different parts of the island. And I just drew in my notebook, and I drew them out, and I looked at it, and I tried to make a little model that said, when the tide is doing this, I'm swimming at this pace. When the tide is doing this, I'm swimming at this pace. And then I would go out and field test it to see how it did. And doing those little rudimentary things kind of put it together for me, and that worked out really well. We wouldn't know for sure until we did the whole thing, but it was the best I could come up with. The third lesson we had from this swim was I had to take care of the crew. If these guys are going to take care of me, I've got to take care of them. Watching somebody swim for 9.5 hours going 2 miles an hour. Ask a couple people, Tori, Adam, Jude, it is a brutal thing to do. Okay? So you got to take care of the people. If they're going to respond to me if I need help, they've got to have protection from the sun, they've got to have nutrition, they've got to have hydration. So they've got to take care of themselves. So we had to work that out as well. So a lot of lessons learned. I mean, it might be hard for me to do these swims, but it's also hard for the crew. They had some challenges as well. So that's kind of the training that went into it, the nutrition, logistics. Let's talk about kind of the elephant in the room, the swimming in the dark. I really wanted to try and turn the lights off, but I couldn't find the light switches. I've done hundreds of night dives. I know there's nothing in the water that's going to get me, but man, you feel vulnerable swimming in the dark. So we started off just going at Maho along the shorelines, and then one night we did the beach-to-beach power swim, the long course. We did that in the dark. We did a couple swims around the west end of the island, played around in the dark with that, and those were okay. We learned that we could use the chemical light sticks. I would put that on my cap, on my goggle straps. We had those Siloom sticks at the kayak so that when I turned to breathe, right there at that level, it was a red Siloom stick, so it wouldn't really blind me, but it was visible. So all these little lessons were learned. The important thing was relaxing. Because if I was tense, if I was nervous, I'd be expending a lot of energy at night when I really needed to relax. It looked like with the currents and the weather and the wind, I was going to start in the dark, and if I didn't get done in time, I might be finishing in the dark. So if I burned up all sorts of nervous energy at the beginning, that wouldn't be good for the rest of the swim. So it was not just enough to swim in the dark, but just to be comfortable. It reminded me that how fortunate I am, and we all are, to swim here. Most people, when they swim in the lakes and the rivers and the streams, they don't see anything. And swimming at night, I didn't see a whole lot, and I realized this is what most everybody experiences when they swim. They don't get to see anything. How fortunate am I, how fortunate are we that we get to see this stuff in the water? There is a lot of bioluminescence. One of the night swims we did around the West End, there was a Perseid meteor shower going up on the sky. In the water, there's all these sparkles and bioluminescence. Every time my goggles would go through the water, my hand would go in the water, there'd just be these myriad of sparkles. And it's really kind of beautiful and fun if you can relax into it. What kind of startles me is when you see this big swoosh of bioluminescence below you, and you go, I wonder what made that. And then push that out of your mind, and you just go, we're just swimming. So swimming in the dark is just a part of doing these kind of things. But as it turned out, with the winds, with the currents, with my speed, we wanted to go around the south side of the island first. I'll talk about that in a second. We started about 3:15 in the morning on, I think it was May 24th, off the old seaplane ramp. And a couple hours later, we're offshore Reef Bay. It's still relatively dark. Ram's Head's a couple miles into the distance. The kayak was next to me, and this is the way we kind of did it, was They navigated on a course using a GPS. They stayed on that GPS course. I stayed next to the kayak, and that's how we did that navigation. From Bovacap to Ram's Head in the dark, or at least 2/3 of that is in the dark, that's a bit of a jaunt, and these guys did great to keep me on course. Getting around getting around Ram's Head was a really big deal. The only way to handle something that was 24 miles was to break it down into 3 8-mile chunks. And this was the first 8-mile chunk. It was against the wind, it was against the waves. I was like, all right, I've got this. You know, if I can get this 8-mile chunk done, this is really great. So I didn't mind the swells against me. I was like, we were making good progress. And the whole reason to go up the south side first, I know a lot of people thought I was nuts for doing that. We know that the wind kind of picks up, right, as the sun comes up. So the wind is relatively calm. The sun comes up, it heats up the land, then the wind comes up. I wanted to be here before the wind really started to pick up. I wanted to take advantage of that calm water. I could have been swimming this opposite direction and getting pushed by these waves. But for me, swimming down wave, down current, is still hard. You've got to stabilize yourself. You've got to do a lot to keep your swimming form. I wanted calm water at the end, not a lot of waves pushing me. So that's why I chose the south side first, and it worked. I mean, this is data from the Caracous buoy. It's 5 miles offshore St. John. This was the day to swim, and you can see as the sun came up, the wind came up to about 10 miles an hour. This is the wind data from the Two Brothers buoy between St. John and St. Thomas, and the swim started about right there, a little after 3. I got around the east end, and then the wind picked up at that buoy, so this is exactly what I wanted to have happen. And it could not have worked out any better. This is the water I wanted to swim in for the last half. Okay? It still is gently pushing me, but it's so much easier than swimming in the rough swells of the south side. So it was a little bit of a gamble, but it worked. These guys took great care of me. I mean, I can't hang on the boat. They throw me that bottle on a rope. I drink half the bottle every half hour, and then I just kind of toss it back. They reel it in, put it in the cooler, and we repeat that every half hour. That's the excitement. This crew was absolutely fantastic. Adam's here, Hank's here, Tori's here, Jude's here. These guys were on the boat. This was new to them, too. I mean, imagine somebody saying, yeah, let's go take a boat ride. We're starting at 3 in the morning. Can you go really slowly around the island and watch me? That'd be great. I just can't say enough about Adam Glahn and what he did. He's up in Florida now. He was a Park Service colleague on keeping me on course with Jude. He hadn't done this before. We hadn't practiced this. We'd done it in the parking lot a little bit. But to do it in the kayak and the boat was a little different. And Adam was rock spot on, and he kept me, and Jude kept me right there. And I'll tell this, it's a little too personal, I'll tell it. Just before we got in the water, I told Adam, I said, Adam, if there's any way, can you put Jude right here so when I turn to the side to breathe, I get to look at her each breath. And I know, but it worked out really good. When we got out around Mary's Point, Fungi Passage, this is over, a little bit over the second 8-mile stretch. And this is fun for me because this is like home turf, right? I did a lot of swimming on the North Shore. I did a lot of swimming around this area. My stroke was okay. The person in the front of the kayak, not only to feed me, they have to take data every 30 minutes to report back to the Marathon Swimming Federation. My stroke's about, it's 46 to 56 strokes per minute, so a little under a stroke every second. So if you multiply that out for 12 hours and 19 minutes, it's about 37,000 strokes to get around the island. I never let myself take this view. I didn't look at what was ahead. I had 37,000 opportunities to get my way there. And I focused on each one of those strokes. I didn't think about what was behind me. I didn't think about what was ahead. I really stuck with right here and right now. Because there are so many things that can go wrong. You can get cramps, you can get stung, the digestion goes bad. I mean, we're drinking this stuff for 12 hours. I've never done that before. So I just stayed in the moment and said, let's stick with it right here. And it worked out really well. The last tough stretch was Turtle Point, or Turtle Bay, between Henley Key and St. John. We know there can be a ton of current in there. And I thought, man, I'm really dependent upon these models being correct. And I was absolutely thrilled when I looked at the bottom and saw that the soft corals were just standing straight up. They weren't laid down over on the side, which meant there'd be a current. And you guys know there can be a ripping current through here. So I was just thrilled. I mean, the model worked out really well. And my plan was, if it was really bad, I would just edge myself nearer and nearer to shore and hope that I could get out of it. But I didn't have to. I could swim straight through. The only time I deviated from that, not thinking ahead, was right around here. We're past Honeymoon, we're coming around Lynn Point, coming into Cruz Bay. And I remember this really, really clearly. I kind of let it go, and I was like, man, you started here in the dark, you know, and you're back. And even now, I mean, I get a little emotional about it. I felt myself almost kind of tearing up, and all the energy started leaving my body. And I was like, wait a minute, you're not done yet, you know? So I was like, all right, none of this crap. You got to stay present, keep thinking of your strokes, keep thinking of what you're doing, and plug on into the end. So I was just thrilled to have the response crew. Many of these people in the audience here tonight were there that day. Marathon Swim Federation rules: nobody can touch me, give me any aid, anything like that. You got to climb out to dry water. The seaplane ramp is a little slippery, so we'll take a little slip here. And you know, gravity's been kind of messing around with you for the past 12 hours, so it's weird all of a sudden to be upright. But I was really glad to see Joe. He was a tremendous supporter, both he and Christina, for the whole thing. It was really spectacular. I had a fabulous little after party at the tap room where it was still under construction. I wish I could have had a piece of that cake. Which that's my favorite chocolate cake with M&M's, holy cow. But I wasn't necessarily really present. I was there, kind of a bad case of goggle eyes, and sipping on a Powerade. They gave me little swimmies to inflate to put on my arms in case I hit the water again. But, as rough as this makes me look during this, I love this picture because, I mean, this just shows the toll this takes on the people who support you. Jude was amazing support through this, and for her to actually see me finish it through the end, I can't imagine what that was like for her as well. So that was really great. Yeah, so this is kind of fun. This is a fun website if you want to play with it. It's called Relive. You can put GPS tracks in it, and it will spit out your course for you in kind of an overview look. And this is the course that the kayak kept me on. And that is just an amazing, solid, straight line. I can't tell you how many times I've watched this, and I'm just in awe of the way this crew got me around the island. They could not have done a better job. And any of these wiggles in here, that is me. I didn't see anything much. I saw some horse-eyed jacks around the east end. I saw some soft corals when we went over Johnson's Reef. So when we got around by Fungi Pastures, I said, I'm going to swim closer to shore because I want to look at something, you know. So that's why we have that little dip in there. But it was just absolutely spectacular.
Wow.
So I want to forward ahead in time now. Again, we're going to take a little time jump to 2023. A couple things came in between there. I think we had a couple hurricanes that we remember, a global pandemic that went on between that time. Let's see, I got to retire from my job at the Park Service during that time. But during all of and Sydney, my friend, asked me, she said, hey, would you mind if I swam around the island? I'm like, absolutely not. Come on down. And I got to be on her crew and walk her through those current models as well. So I supported her in 2021. So that was a ton of fun. But this swim from Virgin Gorda to St. John never really left my mind. It was like, all right, this would be interesting to do. I think it's doable. I mean, now just talking about it after swimming 23 miles, it's like 15 and a half. Come on, what's the deal? I was in that age bracket that starts with a 6 now, so there was a little bit more age behind me. 15.5 miles or so, straight line distance. So again, you just keep swimming. I had some medical procedures done at the end of the year before that, so I wrote to my swim coach friend, Celeste, and I said, okay, a 4-mile swim in January is a long swim. What if I go 7 in February, 10.5 to 11 in March, and 13 and 14 as long swims? If I build up to those, what do you think about being ready to go 15 or 16 in May? You know, and it starts with just a simple little text, you know. It's like, okay, there's the seed, let's plant it, and then you start swimming again. The swim is during the week, they're kind of short, swims on the weekend. However, being retired now, this is actually more swimming in these 5 months by month than I did when I swam around the island. This is about 50 miles, 53 miles a month, as opposed to around 40 when I was when I went around the island. So we bumped a little bit. We bumped it up a little bit to do this. And as this is the Audubon Society, I mean, your goal is to foster that respect for wildlife. I mean, that is why I do this. And I want to share some of my highlights of what I encounter when I swim. I know things have changed a lot in the past couple of years, and it does make us very sad. But these videos are, you know, we have our favorite trails that we hike on. These are my favorite trails that I swim on. I mean, these are my friends. These are my favorite trees, my favorite plants. These are my favorite animals that I get to swim by and appreciate and get to know. Sometimes I carry a GoPro camera with me, and that's where these come from. So they're not the greatest videos. None of these are diving. They're all just encounters of when I'm out swimming. And I don't take any of this for granted. I mean, this is what motivates me, is I am just thrilled when I get to go out and experience this. These horse-eyed jack were like in Water Creek almost every time I went out in the mangroves. They would kind of meet me there, almost always at the same place. And anytime I'm swimming with a spotted eagle ray, it's a great day. You know, this is really, really a magical experience. And it's a little bit of interval training. You get to sprint for a while, try to catch up, and they always outswim me. And these guys, they'll come into focus. I swam with them this morning. These are tarpon over by Maho, right? And it's an early morning, right? I can almost swim in my sleep. These guys are kind of sleeping and resting right at the surface. And what an amazing encounter, you know, to be cruising along and then enveloped by 10, 20, 25 tarpon that are just kind of waking up and starting their day as you're waking up and starting your day. And then there's nothing like Maho and turtles. So 4, 5, 6 turtles at the same time, that's a thrill. Again, I repeat myself, but I just don't take any of this for granted. And then you can't talk about open water swimming without talking about sharks. So let's go into the shark question. I don't chase them, but I had the camera, so it's like, okay, let me chase them for a little while. Let's talk about the shark question. There's reef sharks, there's nerf sharks. Generally, they leave you alone, right? They're predators by stealth. I mean, they don't want anything to do with me. I mostly don't want anything to do with them. I did have a couple encounters. This was on a training swim before I swam around the island with Jude. We went out of Salt Pond, swam around Ram's Head, and then she was guiding me across Coral Bay. And a great route. It was a choppy day, maybe a little rougher than we should have been. And just about as we were coming onto the shore there at Hollover, that little deviation was because it was like, oh, hey, there's Mr. Hammerhead coming off that wanted to take a look at us. And that's when things do get exciting, is when they leave the bottom and they're like, huh, what are you guys doing? She wanted to jump in the water and look at it. She didn't have a mask or goggles on, so she stayed on the paddleboard. And it came up, and then it went down a little bit, and then it came back up, and then went back down. And then it kind of disappeared, and that's when it's exciting. Because it's like, all right, I know there's a hammerhead in the water. Let's keep swimming to shore, so that's what we do. And then the other time, I mean, I love to swim along the buoy line at Francis to Maho. I like to go out here to Fungi Passage. This day, I started at Francis and was out at the buoy lines and, whoop, wait, let's kind of take a deviation to shore. And again, it was kind of murky, and up that joined me at the surface was the man in the gray suit, a hammerhead, just kind of showed up below me. And we swam around each other for about 5 seconds. And I decided, well, I'm not going to stop swimming because I saw the hammerhead, but I'm just going to swim really close to shore. And it didn't chase me out of the water, it was close. And then I ran into Dick in the parking lot, and I was like, Dick, you know, just right offshore here, right? So, yeah, he got the adrenaline rush right after I got out of the water. But it's not usually a problem, right? Usually we think we're swimming by ourselves. There's wildlife out there. But these are the encounters that are really fun. I mean, this is one of those little snorkel jacks, and I can't tell you how many hours, countless hours and miles I have swum with these guys like right below my chin. And they will just swim right with me the whole time. And I almost like feel bad because I take them from one bay to another. And I'm like, does your mother know where you are? And so these are the really fun experiences.
What is the name of that fish?
It's a little jack.
Jack.
Yeah, it's just a little jack. Yep. So the long swim before this, my plan was to do a 13 to 14 mile swim in April. Didn't quite get this far. This is Jude helping me out from Haulover. And come on, there we go. It was a little over 12 and a half miles. It was about a month before. We went down Virgin Gorda, and basically you swim from Haulover and follow the shoreline all the way around, including my favorite place, Whistling Key, then get into Francis and Maho, and then, yeah, why not throw in the power swim course and do the last 3.5 and end up at Hawk's Nest. It turns out it's right over 12 miles. It took me a little over 7 hours. It was the third longest swim I'd done. I was like, okay, if I can go 12 and a half, maybe another 3, maybe another hour and a half or 2 at the end of this, I think I'm kind of ready, because at some point, you just got to get in and go, right? I mean, it's just like we got to figure it out, and you think you're ready. That's the starting point. I mean, that's the baths up there. All I'm going to do is come somewhere down here. It doesn't look that far. But, you know, the one thing I didn't know about with this was the currents. Swimming around St. John, I could do all those segments. But swimming around here in the Great Passage, we hadn't done that before. You all know getting into the BVI is a pain in the neck. So we didn't do any practice swims up here. There is a current model, though. So Caracus is a website that is run by some guys out of Puerto Rico. And this is their oceanographic page that deals with models. And so what's today? Today is Tuesday. So today at noon, they publish the current models for every 2 hours for tomorrow. Tomorrow around noon, they'll publish what they think the currents will be like all around Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands for Thursday. So you get to know a day in advance what they model these currents to be. So my swim was to go from here to here. I had no idea there was so many currents going against the direction I wanted to travel. So what I did with this was I made this little map. Again, I like papers and pens. Every 2 hours was one of their current models, and that's about an hour of swimming for me. So I just took every day that the model came out and said, here's what they say the currents are. If I was doing the swim tomorrow, how would I do it? And then I did that the next day. And I did that the next day, and the next day, and the next day, so that I would try and convince myself that we could figure it out. Maybe I wouldn't know exactly what it was, but having done this for 2 or 3 weeks, I could say, I figured it out all those times, I'll figure it out on that day. So that's what we ended up doing. It was time to get the band back together again. We had Adam back with us, Eric Bauman, Jude was with me. Justin was amazing. He's a veteran, runs the salty businesses out of Coral Bay. And we were looking for a boat to help us do this one. And he's a veteran. And he said, I want to support the causes with the veterans, because again, we were going to raise funds for the St. John Cancer Society and for Team River Run. So he donated the use of the boat, and that was spectacular. The 2 ladies there in the blue shirts are Team River Runner veterans. So one of their unofficial mottos is let's put butts in boats. They want to get these veterans in boats to be active in the water. So instead of just raising money to bring the veterans down, I was like, why don't I involve them as supporting the swim? And it worked out really well. So this is Lauren. She's an experienced kayaker. And Marilyn, we came to find out, had been in a kayak once before. She was going to join us again for this adventure, so okay, here we go. We met up with some of my friends. Some of my friends in Tortola. They graciously donated their house, and they fed us and gave us some stuff to keep us hydrated the day before. But I can't make this stuff up. These look like some Thames faces because this swim was on a Thursday, and from the previous Saturday, all through that weekend and the days before, the website that published the current models was down. So I'm getting with Adam and going, Adam, I don't know what's going on. You know, I had contacted the guy, the physical oceanographer. I had a relation with him who runs the page. He was on vacation that weekend. So I was desperate. And that website didn't update till the middle of the afternoon the day before the swim. So we are hunkered down going, what the heck are we going to do? And this is what it looked like. This is 6 a.m. on the day we had to do the swim. And those were the currents at 6 a.m. We want to get up at 6 and do it. The winds are lighter. Typically, conditions are better. Not so much better at 8 o'clock. A little better at 10. Noon, things are getting better. A couple of those arrows are going my directions, and the bad colors are only out there. 2 o'clock is okay. 4 o'clock. I don't want to start this late. I don't want to start a 10-hour swim at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and swim all night. I know they do it in the English Channel. I know they do it all a couple places. I just didn't want to subject my supporters, my crew, to having to keep track of me in the Drake Passage in the dark.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. So what we came up with was we would leave at 10 and we would kind of follow this black line and kind of hug the South Islands in the BVI and hopefully get a little bit of a break from the current. And again, at some point you got to load up the boat, get in the water and go. So that's what we did. We headed over to Devil's Bay, and eventually you just walk in the water, and I don't try and make it a big deal. I just try and make it like every other swim. It's just a little bit longer. I had a lot of sunscreen on, and the sunscreen we like to use is Blue Lizard titanium dioxide stuff. We start about 6 hours early. So you put on a coat about 6 hours before you're going in the water, and then an hour later you put on another coat. And an hour later you put on another coat because you let that absorb in. And then after about 3 coats, you put on a layer of A&D ointment, or it's basically diaper rash ointment, and coat me with that, and then another coat of that. We're getting pretty close to white paint going on at that part, and it's absolutely no problem laying on my stomach in the sun for 10 hours. It worked really great. The crew took me on the path we decided to do. This is coming up towards Cooper Island here, or this is Ginger Island and Ginger Rock. Sometimes we had both kayaks on both sides. Sometimes we had just one. They really took good care of me. This is the Roan National Park. That's off Salt Island. A little choppy, but it seemed like the waves were pushing me in the right direction. This is Lauren. She actually kayaked the whole way. Again, I can't say enough about the crew. They took care of me. They kept other boaters away from me. This is a really active boating area. And they did a great job to take care of me. The police came out. I have no idea. I just swam. I guess the BVI police saw this slow-moving flotilla and wanted to come out and investigate, and no problem at all there. But because we had that little bit of a bow in the swim, when we got to the open passage there between the islands, it got a little dark. So here we are rigging up for dark. You can see the chemical light sticks on the kayak, on the back of my cap. This is when it's time to really start to dig a little deeper. I wasn't thrilled about swimming at night again here, but now it's swimming at night to get done. I didn't feel particularly bad. There was nothing wrong with me. Yeah, everything kind of aches, everything kind of hurts. But here we are. This is where we started. This is what got me to this point. You know, now a mile and a half, you can see the boats getting pulled around, and all you do is tackle the little steps. You just say, what do I got to do next? What do I have to do next? And then very importantly, you got to have good people around you to make it happen. it's dark. You know, when you're out there, you don't see there's not house lights from the east end. I remember telling Eric in the kayak, I said, man, you know, I don't care where we come ashore, just get me somewhere to crawl up on the shore. A sandy white beach would have been nice, but it wasn't to be. So we're clawing our way across the rubble. Again, after 9.5 hours this time of drinking liquid and swimming, and now you have to be kind of in dry land, and that's about as exciting as it gets. We are done, and then you kind of collapse on the ground for a little bit and take a rest for a minute or two, and then you got to go back to the boat.
Where was that?
They take you back to Coral Bay.
Where did you end up?
Right below the Carney's house, out there at the east end. So I don't actually know if that little cove has a name. And they fortunately, since the boat was based out of Coral Bay, they took us back to Coral Bay and then went home. And the next thing you know, I'm on the couch. This was the way I end most of the swims. I was exhausted. Angela was asking me, was it harder than the Round Island swim? And I would say it was equally as hard. I mean, I was done. I was very tired.
How long does it take for your body to recover after something like that?
How long did it take my body to recover? About a week. You know, it's probably 4 or 5 days to a week. After this one, I did do the power swim. That was just a 3.5 mile jaunt a couple days later, but I've made all of those, so I wanted to do that. It was fairly slow, but yeah, it's about a week for things to kind of get back together for me. So here's that Relive program, and this I think is a really fun kind of view of the swim because you can see the effects of the currents. Every one of those little hitches is when I stop to feed. And when I stopped to feed, I would float on my back, and I would keep kicking in the direction I wanted to go. But you can see that the currents were pushing me back exactly like that model said they were going to. So it really was interesting to look at. I mean, I had no idea when I was out there. I annoyed the heck out of the support teams because I kept saying, I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. Because I couldn't see the out islands, I couldn't see Tortola. I couldn't see anything on the bottom, so it's like you're swimming on a treadmill, and it's like, well, I guess I'm going somewhere. If I look at my times, I won't get into this, but except to say that these are 35 to 40 minute miles. My fastest mile was number 13. That just doesn't really make sense, right? You don't negative split a 15 or 16 mile swim. This is all currents. Right, so the one thing we really had as the exciting part and didn't know about was the one thing that really played into us. And if we look at how the map, that map course ended up with the currents, we just got pushed right at the very beginning a little bit too far out into the stream. They were trying to get me to keep going that way, and I thought I was. It just didn't happen. And then between Salt Island and Norman, we got out a little too far. They finally got me on track, get a little closer to Peter Island, and I did, and then we make it in home. So it eventually works out. That's the way you go from a kid that just likes to play in the water to somebody who, gosh, I didn't actually even know this till recently. I have my own open waterpedia page that recognizes the Cayman swim. It recognizes the swim around St. John and the Francis Drake Channel swim as being the first ones ever done. And these seem like really great individual accomplishments, and my name's the one up there. But it's not me. I could not in any way have done these without the help of these people. I mean, you swim by yourself, but you are not alone. These guys got me there. They brought me through the other boat traffic that was there. They helped keep me on course. They keep me motivated. There's a rumor that after 9 hours I get grouchy when I'm swimming. I don't believe that, but it's just a vicious rumor. I want to give a shout out to a couple people. Eric Bauman, his back has been ruined because I've sat him in a kayak. I love the hand gestures here. I'm not sure what he's saying to Jude. I know these are deep conversations. I'm fairly certain it's driven Eric to drink. And I want to give a shout out to Adam. Adam had a lot of responsibility thrust onto him to be the recorder for the Marathon Swim Federation as well. And you know when I told you about the website going down the day before the Virgin Gorda swim, here's another little story. The day before I swim around the island, it's a Friday, and we're getting the boat, we're going to load up the boat, and the boat we're going to use breaks down. It has a fatal flaw. So it happens, right? That's boats. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. So this is the day before. Everything is ready. Everybody is ready. I'm ready. The supplies are ready. The weather's ready. And now we spend 5 or 6 hours scrambling for a boat. Amazingly and incredibly, Brett Squires comes through, and I go up to Adam, and I'm like, man, do you mind driving the boat and kind of being the ringleader of this circus? And he's done a phenomenal job, and I'm forever indebted to them for the care they've made and took of me. And it's not just even these people, because my family, a ton of people in the States, and all of you guys with the community. You guys came together. We raised over $12,000 during the Round Island Swim. That was split between the St. John Cancer Fund and Team River Runner. For the Virgin Gorda Swim, it was over twice that much. So almost $40,000 has been raised and split, and that's just absolutely amazing. So I appreciate all of their efforts, all of your efforts to make these things something personal for me, but something that the whole community can buy into. Certainly last but not least, I gotta thank Jude. She's, I come up with these ideas, and she says, yeah, we can do them. And maybe it's at 2 o'clock, we're gonna go to the seaplane ramp. And 2 in the morning, we're gonna start swimming around the west end to the south side. It's like, okay, let's go. So I sincerely appreciate that, and couldn't do it without her. So with that, thank you very, very much for sharing this with me. It's been a really treat for me to relive it all, and I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. Yeah.
What next?
What next? There's nothing planned. I just try and stay open and let seeds germinate, and nothing's kind of germinated yet. That Virgin Gorda swim was tough. It took a lot of it. Took a lot out of all of us, and 3 swims that nobody else has done in the world. And the first one for those. That might be the end of it. I'm happy to say that the Cayman swim, there's probably 20, 25 people that have done that now. The governor of the islands did it. So it's fun that when you do these things, then all of a sudden people say, yeah, maybe let's go out and give them a try.
Jeff, on that note, do you plan to motivate the children and give talks in the schools?
I haven't really tried to do outreach associated with this. I didn't really think of it, and it's kind of the first thing. I hadn't really thought of it until you just mentioned it. But no, I haven't really done any of that with it. I'd be happy to. But yeah, no, it hasn't really come up before. This is really the first time I've talked about it in public.
It's so exciting for children to be able to see what you can accomplish, especially when they can just go out and barely walk out into the water,
Yeah.
let alone swim, and they can see, oh my gosh.
Yeah. There's so many opportunities here. And with the Beach to Beach swim, those things, you can start it with assisted, then you can go further, or you can go unassisted. And there's, when Joe and I, we talked about that a lot. We're like, let's get it so people can build themselves up and have something to target and look forward to. And that was a big part of that. Yeah.
Did you do a crawl stroke the whole time?
Pretty much, freestyle front crawl the whole time. Floated on my back a little bit and, flop my arms, stretch my back out a little bit. Even the feeds, when I'm drinking the stuff, you want to stay moving. If you take an extra minute to rest while you're feeding, and you do that for 12 hours, twice an hour, that's 24 extra minutes. That's 24 minutes that you can get stung or get a cramp. So it's like, yeah, I'm done feeding, it's time to start swimming, you know? I would get yelled at occasionally like, hey, keep going, you know? It's not time to float on your back, it's time to turn over and start swimming. So, yeah.
How'd your stomach hold up?
My stomach was amazingly good,
Not good.
you know, yeah. I swear by this stuff, there's a lot of people that Cindy can't touch it. She doesn't use it at all. She uses, I'm not sure what a magic potion she makes, but this works for me. So I stuck with it. And yeah, that'll change, you know, as I age, but for these two events, and I am very happy to share it. I got plenty. I got little shot cups there, so anybody with your refreshments, if you'd like to try some, I'm happy to share it with you.
So I noticed when you swim, you only take air on one side.
Right.
The whole time you're only going to the left.
Right.
Is that norm? I mean, don't people, I can't do two sides, but do some people can take breaths on both sides?
Yeah, most people, I think a lot of people can bilaterally breathe. Most people have a side that's a favorite side. When I swam around the island, I was pretty dominant on my left side, and that was great because that's kind of where the island was. When I swam that counterclockwise, it was on my left. For Virgin Gorda, I'd actually worked on trying to do the other side because it just balances my body out a little better. My right shoulder is a little bit sore in the videos. I can see my right arm really starting to kind of favor and flop around because of that you know, many hundreds of thousands of times using that to breathe. So it's much better to breathe on both sides. It's just a skill that I have to kind of practice and work on.
And did you get seasick? Don't you get seasick?
I didn't get seasick, you know. I was very fortunate about that. The conditions were very good. The crew didn't seem to get seasick either, which was really great. But no, I was really fortunate I didn't get seasick.
Well, my shorter swim is from St. John to Tortola. I don't know if you've done that, but does that have a lot of current through that?
It does. It does. In the Narrows there, go to that CARICOOS, and on the right-hand side, there's some physical oceanography models, and or come up, get your email address, I'll send you that link, and it's tremendous. It seems to be accurate. I mean, it's just a model. So
Have you done that swim?
I have.
Yeah.
I've done that one. Yeah, and it can be twisty. Yeah. Did I ever get cold? Gosh, thank you for asking that. Because in the world of open water swimming, I'm a weenie. You know, this kind of water is so warm for people that usually have hypothermia to deal with in their long swims as well, that I don't have to deal with. But after 40 years of living in the tropics, I'm used to 80, 81, 82. And yes, in the Virgin Gorda swim, I got cold. And I was concerned about it. And I was glad to be finished when I did. So yeah, you can't wear any thermal protection. The water was about 79, 80 at that time. No, I take it back. It was in May, so that was more like 80, 81. But yeah, so I did get cold. And I got cold on the training swims terribly.
So why didn't you swim in September?
Why didn't I swim in September? Because I wanted to involve the Team River Runner kayakers. They come down for the beach-to-beach power swim, so I wanted to not create an additional expense to bring them down. I wanted to piggyback on their coming down to participate in the beach-to-beach. And it caused more challenge to me, but I really wanted their inclusion in the event. And so happy I did. Those guys had a blast and were really fun, so we were glad to include them. Yeah.
So one thing, like, I think for kids too is for you are ideal for a mental model of like persisting and not quitting, and what do you do to like, you must have wanted to quit a lot while you're doing it, and I think that's an important discipline to transcend the kids.
Yeah, you know, I think the swims that you do, the practice swims are a big part of that. You know, the routine of I'm getting up to go do this swim, it's not good, it's stormy, it's wavy, it's dirty. I'm going to go out and do it. It's just that dedication to the goal and say, I'm just going to keep going. And that's what motivated me to do it. On the Virgin Gorda swim, I nag these guys over and over how many times I yell out, is the tracker working? Because I do a lot of people were tracking that. And I was like, well, if it's working, I've got to keep going because a lot of people are watching. But yeah, you know, it's kind of ironic. People think these are really long swims, and they are in and of themselves, but they're over in 12 hours. You know, what's really long is the year, the 9 months planning and training for it. And when you do that day in, day out, every day, and think about and overcome all those obstacles, and then it's over in a day. It's over in a half a day. It's like, oh my gosh, now it's done. It's really kind of weird, and it's your mind that keeps you going in your training to say, okay, I'm swimming again, I'm swimming again, I'm swimming again. That's what keeps you going when during the swims it gets hard. At least that's what it was for me.
Kind of like your t-shirt.
Yeah,
Sink swim.
like the t-shirt, you got an option, and that was it. Yeah.
Who did your beautiful presentation? Yes.
Pardon me?
Who did your beautiful presentation?
I put this together.
The whole thing?
Yeah, yeah.
The tracking?
Yeah, oh, the track, yeah, all right, yeah, no, that's one. I mean, it's all about, you know, when you're in a pool, you get the instantaneous feedback of how fast you're going. For me, it's I got to get the GPS and look at where, even though I've done it 150 times, I want to see that track again, and I enjoy that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's been fun. I really want to thank the Audubon Society again for having me here because it was a tremendous amount of fun to put this together.
Thank you.